Hello, everybody. I'm Jasky. Thank you for joining me on another live or on the video. If you're watching this, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And for those who have no idea who you are watching, I am Australia's #1 street interviewer, someone who has been obsessed with communication and using words to achieve any outcome in your life. I know, big statement, but that has been my obsession for many years. And I have created interviews, moments, and interactions with people that have now led to 750 million views across the platforms. I have been involved as a consultant for high stakes negotiations. I have been a trainer for cold calling, traveled as a stand-up comedian, performed in front of tens of thousands of people as an MC. I have also helped train hundreds of communicators now to the point that within a 90-minute diagnostic, I can transform someone's communication. And all because I was an introverted, very nervous, very uncomfortable child who wanted to really get better at communication, to be able to speak to strangers, to be able to get into situations and use my words and create magic. So what I do here on the channel is I try and break down some of these interesting moments and how someone could have done it better, what someone did wrong, what could have improved that situation. And hopefully by watching these interesting interactions, well, I love it. I love it because I love learning from it. And also by doing it here in video format, maybe you can learn something as I share my perspective on it and gives you something for you to take away into your own world and your own endeavors. So chuck a comment in. I will try and reply to it as we go through this. And if I do take on about 5 people, roughly 5 people every month, where I coach them personally. And like I said, within 90 minutes and 12 months of accountability, I can transform their communication. So just with such a short input, hopefully can have an impact on the lives of those people that I select, that I feel that have potential, ambition, and communication would be something that would transform one of their professional or personal endeavors. So handpick people, only 5. And if you want to jump on and have me work with you, jaskysing.com or jasky.me. All right, today we are going to look into one of the most talked about conversations in the last few days. And this is the interview that Bill Gates did on Channel 9 Australian News. And it was responding to some of the latest allegations that came out in the release of the Epstein files. This interview has been doing its rounds. It's been fucking everywhere. And I will preface this entire live, this entire video by saying I don't have any political inclination. I don't care about the politics of it. I don't care if he's right or if he's wrong. I mean, I care in the sense of the harm that has been done, but that's not the point. I'm not here to have an opinion on what has taken place. I am here to observe how he responded in such a high stakes interview, because every single word, which is exactly what I'm about to do, is going to get scrutinized. How do you respond in that interview? That is fascinating. I love seeing situations where the stakes are immense, because a lot of my interviews are done in tense, potentially dangerous, sometimes having to de-escalate some really, really on edge people. And I gravitate towards sometimes going to the darker sides of the community. I don't mean darker skinned, right? That's just me. But darker parts of the community. And I'm fascinated by how do you navigate those situations? And there is no more talked about political topic at the moment than these files and a person who's had the spotlight on them, Bill Gates, is being interviewed and being asked about it in particular. So it is fascinating to see how one who I hope has been repeatedly trained by his PR team, or not even trained, repeated. He's obviously had a lot of communication training just as foundation, but then also being guided, being having to practice each of the responses. How does it come across when the situation actually takes place, and how does he handle it? So, and there's many lessons for us to learn in a situation like that by watching someone go through it and then analyzing it and seeing what can we take away from it. So the way I'm going to do it is I'll play part of it. I'll let you see it. Maybe some of you've never seen this before, so I'll let it run for a minute. I think it only goes for a couple of minutes. Well, maybe I'll let it run through. I'll skip back. We'll talk through it, and then we'll assess it. So let's go.
Part of that issue of trust brings me to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know what your relationship with him was.
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2011. So over a period of 3 years, I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them to give money to global health. You know, in retrospect, that was a dead end, and I've said many times, but I'll say again, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
Okay, let me just go back, and there's a number of things I notice here, and again, we've got to understand the magnitude of this situation. It's a every word here is going to get scrutinized, and Bill Gates being on this interview probably knows that every word is going to get torn apart, and he's going to get blasted by every sort of media channel and it's going to be repositioned in all forms. So there is already an inherent amount of tension that he has to withstand, uh, knowing that what the backlash is going to be. So he's already going in knowing that uh, this is a tightrope walk of an interview here, right? So that's already the background. So some of the things I'll probably mention here have to be prefaced by that he is probably showcasing signs of nerves because it's a pretty fucking nervous interview, right? It's generally not the kind of interview that's like chilled, like, hey, what's going on, man? What's your favorite type of coffee bean, right? Like they're not talking about something hella chilled. Hey, what's your favorite song of 2026? Can we show you a Spotify Wrapped? It's not one of those, right? So there is a little bit of tension here.
Part of that issue of trust brings me to Jeffrey Epstein.
So straight away, you can see the body language here. The moment the name Jeffrey Epstein has been mentioned, and good on the interviewer for being clear and direct, because he did preface the lead in a little bit by trying to buffer it, but then he said it as directly as he could. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein. You can see Bill Gates' reaction here, the pursed lips, the kind of the bottom lip hiding underneath your top lip. It's a sign of, I want to not have to talk about it. I am currently trying to suppress my uh, my body is trying to control me here by squeezing uh, uh, squeezing my mouth together by hoping no words come out because there is something here. I'm a little bit nervous about this, right? The pursed lips is the first interaction that someone is trying to hold something back.
I want to know what your
And the excessive nodding at that point is an overcompensation, right? Typically, it's an overcompensation. When someone puts you on the spot about something you are nervous about, regardless, like I said, regardless of guiltiness or not, or all of that, I said that's not part of this conversation, right? But anything that you are put on the spot about, you are overcompensating by making it look like you are completely comfortable with this conversation. So the pursed lips indicate one thing, And then the excessive nodding is like, yeah, yeah, I'm cool with it. But no one does that unless you are not cool with it, right? It's an excessive overcompensation of trying to look like, yeah, this is cool. This is a conversation I'm okay to have. He's not okay to have this conversation. I mean, he probably knew it was going to happen, but anyway, I don't need to say any further.
Your relationship with him was?
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2011.
A lot of fidgeting, a lot of movement, right? Like side movement and up and down. That is nerves in the body. Anytime I have noticed, let me backtrack a second. When I ask a question to someone where I know this is the question that they probably don't want to answer, but it is the question that everyone is going to be asking, and everyone's going to want me to ask that question, you can see the release of the nerves from the body, which are typically exemplified by unnecessary movements to try and get rid of those nerves, right? So, someone who's talking about having lost their kids and then going, oh, I really want to meet my children again. I haven't seen them for so long. I'm fighting for them. I really wish I could have them back in my life. Now, the question for me there is, and the question for the viewer, and it's a very uncomfortable question, is, well, what did you do wrong? Were there drugs involved? Was there some violence involved, right? And it's a question that has to be asked. So the interviewer must be calm, must be relaxed, and must directly ask that question. What you will notice is when the other person is put into the position of having to confront confronting their truth internally, whether they verbalize the truth is different. The body showcases nerves because I am about to talk about something that I'm not really incredibly comfortable about talking. So there is a lot of unnecessary movement, and you do see that right here.
So over a period of 3 years, I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them.
Okay, and touching of the glasses, a lot of movements. Look, his Jace line, it's not even a laughing matter. His baseline, his baseline is generally quite a fidgety speaker. If you go watch his interviews, he does move around a lot. He's got a lot of strange, nervous mannerisms. But I observed the rest of this interview, and then I observed this section. And like I said, I prefaced this at the top. It is likely that he is going to showcase more of these tendencies because this is the most high tension part of the entire interview, and the one that's going to be extracted and disseminated globally across fucking every channel possible. So he can feel that, of course. But the baseline is well in excess of his usual fidgety nature, right? I'll play it a bit, but then there's a couple other things I want to mention there.
To give money to global health. In retrospect, that was a dead end, and I've said many times, but I'll say again, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
Okay, in terms of the wording, there's a few things, right? Like we've talked about the body language, the stress release, the fidgeting, all of these indications of excessive nerves, right? So the point of mentioning that, what we're trying to analyze is how do you deliver the best message? How do you deliver the best outcome here? And for someone who knew this questioning, I imagine, was coming, this is not the best way to deliver it, right? Stillness, good pacing, clarity, and speaking with a level of conviction showcases to the viewer and everyone else that you are being truthful, right? Essentially, all he wants to communicate is truthfulness, right? So it would have been done a lot better by just being a lot more still, right? To practice stillness. How do you practice stillness? How do you calm all that shit down? And the way that I do it and the way that I have taught people to do it is to breathe in deep in your diaphragm, your lower part of your stomach, and breathe in deep for 4 and breathe out for 2 or 4 if you can handle the breathe out for 4. And what you'll notice is just relaxes everything. It takes away some of the fidgetiness from your body, some of those nerves, some of the um, just like the creepy crawlies that come out into your fingers, the crawlers that just hang out at the tips. Gets rid of all of that. Do it a couple of times, and you do a pre-interview. You can even do it in the midst of an interview. Ask you, hey, so one of these questions, one of the important parts of this conversation is to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Yes. Well, Jeffrey and I, whatever, right? You can pause, right? And sometimes pausing and being composed indicates the person is at ease. And by being at ease, the uh, the by being at ease, the uh, outcome, what people take away from that is that the person is okay with the situation, which then indicates that the person is generally truthful. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is just be more. He should have been more still. He should have been more relaxed, less movement, less fidgeting, less weird touching of all that kind of stuff, right? So the training here would have had to be on working on stillness. That would have been one of the most important parts of the entire interview. But also comes with that is the pacing. His pacing is a bit of a flip-floppy mess, up and down, a little bit of like here and there. Like he's talking fast and then going back and then eating his words and saying like it's slow, direct, composed, relaxed, with a little bit of change in your cadence and articulation. Obviously keeps people entertained, but a slower pacing. Bring the speed down, right? Down for clarity, not up and down and up. uh, Let me rephrase. Up and down is important because monotonous talking too slow at all times is incredibly boring and weird. Talking too fast and also trying to communicate at this pace at all times and trying to say, yes, I don't understand the answer, but what I did do is 3 years ago we had dinner together and we became, is also irritating, right? You slow down when you're stressing the point, and then you can speed up when you're trying to get through the information of trying to get to the main points. Okay? So you get the point. Now, a few things on the wording. I'm going to play it back and then I can comment on some of this.
2011. So over.
Hang on.
I want to know what your relationship with him was.
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2000.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Sorry, I keep going back and pausing, but you got to respect the interviewer because it is a tough question to ask, right? And even interviewers, people don't realize interviewers get nervous. So it's a tough question to ask. And he did deliver it with stillness and composure and directness. He didn't fuck around and fluff around with the wording. He didn't try and soften it by the end by raising his tone at the end. What are your thoughts on Jeffrey Epstein? Like just soften the question so much that it didn't mean anything. And he also stopped. What was your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Like he stopped. Someone would just keep going because it's a tough question. You try and soften it. So mad respect to the interview. It's not easy. I do it all the time. So got to give him credit too. But anyway, let's play.
Brings me to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know what your relationship with him was.
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2011. So over a period of 3 years.
Over a period of 3 years. Now, why specifically say over 2011 over 3 years, right? Why did he have to mention that? Now, the reason to mention it is to kind of contain the period in the smallest possible container he can put it in, right? It's strategic. Let's bring it as small as we can. So he's well aware of what's out there in the public, but let's compress it to the smallest time frame. So outside of those 3 years, well, I can just say I knew him for 3 years because I was outside of the time I knew him. So let's put it in the smallest possible container we can. So he did say that for a reason.
I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and he was saying he could get them to give money to global health. You know, in retrospect, that
So this is, yeah, again, kind of interesting that essentially he was asked about the relationship. So it is the question, but what you will realize is what he's trying to do, he's trying to answer the adjacent question. The question is probably the question we all know that's being asked. What is your relationship with him? Did you travel with him? Did you spend time on his private properties with him? Did you X, Y, and Z, all those things? But what he's trying to again contain is to move to the adjacent question by answering, well, I thought he was going to provide me access to funds for global health. So he's already he's moving from his behavior to intent, right? And intent is harder to attack than facts. Intent is harder to attack than facts. So instead of like answering the question what you were doing, well, this was my intention. I was trying to achieve funding for global health, right? He's moving it away from his own behavior, but it's going to an intention. I was trying to achieve this purpose. Again, containing it into a completely different category to what the question is actually being answered, right? Oh shit, what did I do? Sorry. Something's happened to my screen. Okay, we're back.
was a dead end, and I've said many times, but I'll say again, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
You
A couple other interesting things is straight away getting into the regret of the decision. That wasn't, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't even asked about, do you regret having the relationship with him and da da da. But expressly putting that out there at the top it's like a you're not you're just trying to say, look, yeah, I'm already regretting the fact that I knew this person, and also I am one of many people who regret ever knowing him. He's moved it again from being an individual who knew Jeffrey Epstein to a category of people that knew Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so there's a few maneuvers here, and by putting the spotlight again away from me being the individual that's being targeted, well, there was a lot of people that were into that had a relationship with this individual, and I was another one of those many individuals. Just moving again like a little handball away from the spotlight onto yourself, just maneuvering it slightly to a larger category of people.
no doubt seen the allegations, including some of them from the.
Regret ever knowing him.
You've no doubt.
And again, some of the mannerisms here are very unusual, right? If you look at his facial expressions here, again, the very tightly pursed lips, which indicate he is again controlling the. Well, he's not actually actively doing this. This is a subconscious behavior where your subconscious is pursing your lips together. It's pressing them together in a way of not allowing any words to get out. Right? I'm being very calculated with my words. Right? I'm really trying to contain them inside my body. Maybe I should contain some more words inside my body so they don't come out by saying body. It's containing them, but it's subconsciously not allowing them to escape, because every word here is a word that could potentially be an admission to some sort of guilt.
Seen the allegations, including some of them from the last 24 to 48 hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself.
Now, aside from the mannerisms, right? Again, a poor way of delivering this, right? And because there's a lot of just, not only through breath work, through simulation, through training, making the training of the questions be more hostile, more aggressive, getting your nervous system to be completely deregulated in a testing environment to then allow it to pull back because it's like, you push yourself so hard in training that when, like, say you're doing bench press or whatever, like, I don't know why I always go to bench press, one of the worst exercises to showcase any sort of like aggressive form of exercising. Let's say you're doing like an intense hit class, but you're training for the games. You want your hit class to train certain aspects of what you are going to see in the games, but at an extreme level in little contained forms of exercises, right? Like there's a box jump, but you want to try and push that to the extreme limit in the testing phase. So that when you are actually performing for the part that is actually the meaningful part, which is the game, which is the performance, which is the 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 uh, the final final performance, you want the testing to be harder. So all of these things should have been tested out by the time he had this interview, right? And maybe the nerves are still overriding it, which means the testing wasn't as good. Like it just wasn't done enough, like to the point that his nerves shouldn't override it. Anyway, so aside from those mannerisms, I'm just going to pull it back 1 second because now
48 hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there.
yeah, some of this response is crazy.
Jeffrey wrote an email to himself.
From the last 24 to 48 hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself.
Apparently, the use of the word apparently is a very strange use of word here. Apparently, it's like I am not informed of the information here. Now, I'll try and break it down into two different categories, which will make it easy to understand at the end. But for this purpose, right here, it really it pisses off the audience that you use the word apparently. What that means is, what, did you not look at the information prior? Of course, you should be well informed of what's been released because it is impacting you directly. So the use of the word apparently he wrote an email to himself. So apparently either means is, well, apparently I don't know what the actual information is. So I'm just saying apparently because I just heard this, which is crazy, right? There's no way. You're a multi-billionaire. You have teams of people that are going to inform you about every bit of information. So you will be informed. So use the word apparently there is very strange. But secondly, maybe he's trying to introduce uncertainty, right? So it's about discrediting the mechanism of accusation rather than the motive of the accuser, right? Which might sound confusing. It's like, well, apparently this email was sent to himself. I don't actually know what's happening. Like the mechanism of that email is strange. So you're just creating uncertainty and again trying to answer an adjacent question. So look, hopefully it'll make sense why he's doing this, but in terms of a viewer's satisfaction of knowing whether he's answered the question, it's very frustrating because apparently this and an email, it's like, dude, you don't know? Have you not looked at it before walking into an interview where you knew you were going to be asked this question?
that email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. Was he trying to attack me in some way?
Also, what I do notice is he used a lot of filler words. A lot for someone who has to communicate at a very high level on a regular basis. It is it is the easiest low hanging fruit to remove from your entire vernacular. You should not have the word all these fillers ever enter any form of your communication. That should be completely trained out. So it just makes someone sound less confident, less certain, and is the easiest thing to remove. Again, I said so maybe I need a little bit more work. It's the easiest thing to completely eradicate from your speech. And the easiest way to do it is you get a rubber band, put it around your wrist. Anytime you use a filler word, just quickly flick it, right? A little bit of self-inflicted pain, and you are classically conditioning yourself to remove that behavior completely. And just by removing that, like I said, look, body language, tonality, all of that, composure, volume, speed, articulation is everything, right? The words are secondary. But in the words, one of the easiest things to tackle is the filler words. So pull out the filler words, which are the easiest thing to do. And again, another plug, I work with, typically I onboard 5 people every month that I work with one-on-one, or someone very close in my team works with, and we run a diagnostic on those people who are accepted into that monthly cohort. And we do training, and that is myself and, like I said, my team. We do the training, and within 90 minutes and 12 months of accountability and certain other systems that we build in, we transform people's communication to be significantly better in whichever endeavor, professional outcome they want to achieve. So if you are someone who is looking for training, right, and you go in and you qualify, because you can go on the website. The website is jaskysingh.com or jasky.me. And you can, if you qualify, you make the payment for the diagnostic, and then you answer a questionnaire. It's a very detailed questionnaire. The questionnaire itself will have such an impact on your communication that we may not even accept you and refund your entire cost of the diagnostic, and you still get an incredible benefit by just doing the questionnaire, because no one would ever do that otherwise, right? It's a sunk cost of now having to do the questionnaire, and then we go, look, you're not the right person for it, but you still get a humongous amount of benefit out of it. Now, if you want that training, literally the first thing we would do is absolutely get rid of all filler words. So the fact that he still has filler words in his speech is mind-boggling. It's insane. All right.
Attack me in some way, but it just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret, and I apologize that I did that.
The problem
And again, it is repeating the same regret when not asked for it. No one is asking about, do you regret? Do you hate the fact that you met him? Or no one that wasn't even asked as the question, but it is he's trying to create this soundbite that everyone will use, because they know he's done it often enough that any question that is being asked, he knows it's going to get clipped, and at the end of the clip, he wants the regret to always be aired, right? But it's a very strange, for someone watching this interview, it's very strange. Like, why are you repeatedly having to say that part when not actually being asked that question?
is some of the things that he has sent and some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
And again, massive credit to the interviewer. Again, a very tough question and the question that everyone wants to ask. And that's the job of the interviewer, is to ask the question that everyone wants to ask, and ask it in the most calm, direct, and the most effective manner that you can. And in this case, it has to be very evenly paced, very relaxed, but very direct. And it's like, well, everything else that's come out in these documents has been true. So why do you think in your case would he be lying? and he's positioned it perfectly. And again, you'll notice the mannerisms are showcasing all forms of nerves. Even if you scrub through, you see a lot of weird behaviors. Like, look at this pursing of the lips, and really, like, uh, it's insane. Which is, again, we're trying to look at how would you better handle this. You wouldn't do any of this shit. You would take this out. Like, you wouldn't need to do any of that. Like, it's insanity. Um,
The things that he has sent and some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Yeah, again, it's not you're introducing the island, you're introducing women, you're saying things that again do not need to be mentioned here. And even for the third time, that time was a mistake. Again, putting that in there, whereas the question that's being asked is not the question that's actually being answered. The question was, why do you think that everything else was true? In your case, you think it's a lie, and all he says is, "Well, it was factually true that we went out to dinners." Again, it's answering a very adjacent question. You can see the repeat pattern. Answer an adjacent question, and then end it with your regret of having known this individual. And it's never a clear answer to the actual question. And then in this case, introducing island and women, big mistake. There's no need to mention all the horrific parts of the allegations and actually verbalize them. That was never asked. Don't introduce information that doesn't need to be introduced. No one is talking about the women. No one is talking about the island. I know underneath the surface, that is what people are saying, but until you are asked directly about it, don't bring it up, because it gives the interviewer an option of now prodding into it. You are providing information that is allowing the other person to strategically pull those words and now ask about them because you've introduced them, right? So the interview could be like, "Oh, you mentioned the women. Did you ever, you said you never met the women. Was there a time that you came across him with, like you've given him one tile in the garden pathway that he can lead you down, but don't even give him that step. Take that step away." Okay, let's play.
Is it frustrating to you, given what you've said, that this is now happening?
Not really. I mean, people should, hold people who are successful to a very high bar. And so, as these documents come out, they're going to be closely scrutinized.
In the end, that is that part where, are you frustrated by this? He has answered it perfectly. By people would expect him to be this defensive billionaire, but he's actually tried to position himself as a responsible elite who accepts scrutiny. You're aligning yourself with the values of your critic. No, anyone who's incredibly successful should be put in the spotlight and have to answer these questions. That's completely okay. It is the absolute right way to answer that. It's by saying, "Well, yeah, keep holding me, keep putting my feet to the fire," because it makes it look like you have nothing to hide. If you said, "Well, no, I think it's actually quite frustrating. We shouldn't constantly have to answer these questions. It is ridiculous. I haven't done anything." It looks a lot worse. So strategically, it is the best way to answer that question. Now, what I want to try and explain here, in terms of the effectiveness of answering these questions and where this interview went, there is a how do I put it? There's two axes of effectiveness. Okay, there is a informational effectiveness, which is us as the audience, and there is a defensive effectiveness, which is the speaker, Bill Gates. So you've got to see this through the lens of two possible forms of effectively dealing with this interview. Now, one is informational effectiveness, which is I gave you clarity, I gave you transparency, I gave you trust. Meaning, in those cases, right, if he was going for informational effectiveness, he would have answered this very differently. He would have gone, well, he would have given some specifics, right? What you'll notice here, there's no specifics. And he would have gone, well, I have proof on this date, there was this email where Jeffrey and I communicated in here, and I've shared it with you, which you can put up on this interview and relay to your audience the interaction here, which clearly indicates that that email that was released in the documents is negated by the fact that like you're going into the specifics, right? And what that does, it gives you clarity. It showcases, hey, here's some receipts, and it builds your trust, right? If you really wanted to go for informational effectiveness, you would go directly into specifics, right? You realize on the axis, this rates very low on informational effectiveness. He's giving you fucking no information. There's nothing here, right? He hasn't really squashed any of the queries by providing any sort of specific details or even directly answering the question. Okay? So informational effectiveness, the audience, we feel frustrated because we haven't got any fucking information. So why do that, right? The reason you do that is because the second axis is defensive effectiveness. And defensive effectiveness is to answer these questions by minimizing your exposure, by containing the scope, right? Compressing it into a container that you can manage and reducing future questions. And making sure you minimize any liability. You don't want misquotable specifics, like people can misquote you on things you've said, avoid follow-ups, and just close the doors as much as you can, right? For all your litigation and all the other future problems. Defensive effectiveness, this rated incredibly high, right? So from I imagine from Bill Gates' perspective, from a legal perspective, or his advisors on the let's protect you side, this was very high. Now you can get high on both. You can get high on both, brother. You can be high on both axes, but I hope knowing that in your mind to know, are you facing a high amount of risk here? And if you are, you have to raise the defensive effectiveness of your communication. And you can keep your informational effectiveness low. People might be pissed off, but you have done everything to protect yourself. And now what does that mean? Maybe let me iterate back into this interview. I'll let it play through. So maybe you can hear, and I did commentate through it, but maybe you can hear how everything is designed to be defensively effective, not informationally effective. Okay? Let me just play through.
Every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
Part of that issue of trust brings me to Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know what your relationship with him was.
Yeah, I met Jeffrey in 2011. So over a period of 3 years, I had a number of dinners with him. The focus was always, he knew a lot of very rich people, and
a number of dinners, don't be specific. Dinners again, just general, like it's bounded activity. I'm just saying dinners, nothing else, right? We had dinners, okay? So kind of specific, but also vague, like, whatever. But you're bounding the activity again. Let's protect ourselves. And then 3 years, compress as much as you can in publicly known information, and that's it. A dinner, a number of dinners. We don't need to say how many, but there were dinners. There were only dinners, and over 3 years.
He was saying he could get them to give money to global health. In retrospect, that was a dead.
And again, redefining its purpose. He came to me to help me with raising funds for global health. Okay, again, let's contain it. Let's not go anything further. That's what the purpose of it was. Again, we're trying not to highlight behavior. We're going to intent. Again, it is being as protected as
At
possible.
end, and I've said many times, but I'll say again, I was foolish to spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
And he'll repeat the regret every
No
so
doubt
often.
seen the allegations,
Because
including
that
some
is
of them from
the
the
thing you
last
want
24 to
to be
48
clipped.
hours. Are they true?
No, apparently Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there.
Detach yourself from it. Detach. How can you answer this question, right? Where it is, the email is talking directly about Bill Gates. It is, his answer does not make any sense, right? When you look at the contents of the email and the timelines of the email, again, like I said, I'm not going into trying to factually prove one thing or another, because that's not the point of this, of my channel or this. But how do you communicate it? And the best way to communicate it is just introduce uncertainty and detach yourself away from it. It was sent to himself, because the email was sent to himself, but it was a note that had information about him. So the answer doesn't make any sense, but that doesn't matter. It is trying to protect your liability and protect future questioning and more trouble in the future, introducing more problems in the future and future questioning. So discredit the mechanism. Some random email, I don't know, like it was false, and like he does this thing to try and when you touch your heart, make it look like a little bit more transparent, humble, uh, warm individual. It's a very strategic thing. Look, I actually don't know. Like, people do it when they try and really showcase gratitude. Oh, thank you so much. He's doing all that, and it's to try and again deflect, move away from it. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I don't know what the hell it is, right? And then again, he'll follow this up with every minute I spent with him, I regret.
Was he trying to attack me in some way? But, it just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret, and I, apologize that I did that.
The problem is some of the things that he has sent and some of the information about other people that has come up in those files has been true. Why would he do this and say this about you, do you think?
It's factually true that I was only at dinners,
Again, factually true. He's trying to, again, take everyone's mind to only focus on the fact that he said, oh, yeah, it's factually true. It is such an interesting way of saying, yeah, it's factually true. But the thing that's factually true is the dinners. I had dinners with him. So let me point you to the facts. But the facts he's curating as dinners. Right now, I don't know what the facts are. That doesn't matter. But he's saying, this is factually true. Let's talk about factually true. But he's not really talking about any facts except for dinners. Right? Again, it's if you look at it through the lens of defensive effectiveness, it has been worded perfectly to be as effective as possible, the answers, to protect any more problems in the
I
future.
never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be.
And the more that it comes out, the clearer it'll be, is basically saying, he's using that again strategically to make it to make it clear that as it comes out, you will just know that I never went to those things. Let me just pre-answer it for you. Let me pre-answer your next question, because it's going to now potentially be, he knows where this line of questioning is going. He's closing the doors in advance. And it is to say, the information is going to come out and you'll know. I was never there. You know the answer, right? I got nothing to hide, dude. I'm clear.
That although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with
Again, repetition. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. It was a mistake.
that kind of behavior.
Is it frustrating to you, given what you've said, that this is now happening?
Not really. I mean, people should, hold people who are successful to a very high bar. And so, it's, as these documents come out, they're going to be closely scrutinized.
So there, hopefully watching it again, you can see it from two different lenses, right? This interview feels ineffective. I believe it's ineffective because I very much lean towards an effective form of communication for myself, but for people I coach, I guide, and depending on the situation, it doesn't have to be informationally deep. It doesn't have to even have much information. It is about the purpose of the interaction, and the purpose of this interaction is protection. So the interview does feel ineffective because it was never designed to inform you. It was designed to protect him. So lack of detail doesn't mean someone failed under pressure. It does also mean they succeeded at avoiding pressure. So, you know, he handled it well from a defensive perspective, but in terms of the overall presentation, it wasn't done as well as it could have. Even on that axis, the wording you can tell has been pre-planned, but the delivery could have been significantly better. So if you're in a situation, and hopefully you're not in a situation as grueling as this, I do hope that that never happens for you. But at least you know there are lessons here to be learned on how to handle the situation depending on the type of outcome and the risk mitigation you are trying to work on. Okay. Thank you for joining me and hope you found that useful. Au revoir. See you on the next one. Bye bye.